Welcome to your lesson. In this lesson, I'm going to show you how to organize data using Desmos, and we're going to do some analysis of that data. Before we jump into Desmos, let's take a look at some analysis and practices of data. So let's recall. So what is a scatterplot and how does that work exactly? So I'm just going to highlight tool. So a scatterplot represents two variable data as points. Scatterplots may reveal a relationship. Now they may reveal nothing, but they sometimes reveal a relationship between two variables. In two variable situations, one variable might be dependent on the other, and its value changes according to the value of the independent variable. So let's talk about what is this dependent and independent variable. Now, the independent variable is always situated on the horizontal axis, on the bottom of the graph. Now, the dependent variable is always situated on the vertical axis. And if there's a relationship, the independent variable causes the dependent variable. Now, right now, you can look at this and you're both say, what is going on? And we have to first find some kind of relationship or an example in order for this to be cleared. But before we, of course, have to do that, we're going to go into a little bit more theory. Let's say if there is a relationship between an independent and a dependent variable. So there's a correlation. If there's a correlation, the graph will look very, well, not very, but it will look very specific. It will have a certain pattern. So there are two types of correlations, a positive correlation and a negative correlation. So a positive correlation describes the situations in which both variables increase together. So for example, if we have independent variable at the bottom and a dependent variable on top, when there is a positive relationship, the dots, the scatter plot, will form some kind of line that is actually increasing. And whenever we have a negative correlation, we'll have a line that's actually decreasing. Now this increasing line going upwards from left to right is called a positive correlation. And if the line is actually decreasing like this, that's called a negative correlation. So now let's take a look at an example where we could find this positive or negative correlation, or we may not actually find a correlation at all. So here is our one example that we're going to do in this video. We have Davis, who's conducting an experiment comparing a person's leg length, that's exciting, and how long it takes the same person to walk 100 meters. And he's gathered this data with leg length in centimeters and the time it takes to cover 100 meters in seconds. So now we have these little bit confusing X and Y coordinate points that really don't mean much to us. So the first thing we always have to do is create a table for these coordinate values. And we're going to use Desmos for our purpose to create, to kind of summarize this information. So now I opened up Desmos, and we are going to first create a table of values to summarize this information. So here we go. So we're going to add a new value, the plus sign, and we're going to scroll down to a table and we're going to create a value. Now there's an X value and a Y value. Now the first coordinate point, this 80 thing right here, that's going to be your X value, and the Y value is going to be your 66 that corresponds to this. X value. So let's get back into. Okay, so let's go type it in. 80, and the next one is 66. Now we'll go down to the next point, which is the 73, and the corresponding the Y value is 74. And then we're going to continue on, and we're going to fill up this list. Here we go. Now we have the entire table of values And let's just double check that we have all the values correctly inputted. The first mistake you could possibly make in this is that you're going to put the wrong values in your table. So we have so all the points seems to be okay. And now let's just focus on the Desmos, because now we're going to graph it. We're going to create an XY scatter plot. So now we're on Desmos only, and right now we don't see a single point. Where is the point? Well, if you look at these values, you have 80 for X and 73, and if you look at your grid, I mean, the largest number here is 8, maybe 9, 10. So basically we have to zoom out. And on the right hand side of your Desmos, there's a plus button, and we're going to zoom out, so minus, until we see these points. Oh, there the points are. That's the points. And we kind of want to zoom in into this a little bit better. We could actually click on it and kind of change our graph. So it seems a little bit better. And now, how do we zoom into this part? We could maybe even type plus value to zoom better. But overall, at the end of the day, we probably have to change our settings a little bit to change the window settings. Maybe we cut off at 100. Maybe we have to start with 0 for our x-axis, and maybe we start with 0 and finish maybe at 90 for the y values, for y-axis. The way we do that, we change the window settings by going to the graph setting on the right-hand side, and if you scroll down, we'll have the x-axis settings, and let's start with, instead of minus value, let's start with a 0 value. Notice that it changed from 0, and then let's just finish maybe at 90, and that's where 90 is. I made a mistake. I don't really make a mistake, it's just if you look, if I close this window down, that's where our points are. Okay, and then go back to it, and let's change our y-axis, and instead of 0, let's just start from, I don't know, if you look at your y values here, maybe we could start, what's the lowest value? The lowest value is 62, maybe we could start at 60. And maybe go to, the highest value is like 80. Well, that's, I guess, fine. So let's take a look at the pattern. And if you don't like it, you can always move it a little bit more so you could see more correlation and more pattern forming. So here is our graph. And do you see a relationship? Well, do you see a positive relationship, or do you see a negative relationship to this? If you zoom in, zoom out. If you zoom in, you might not actually see it very well, but how about now? Do you see it now? So let's take this graph and find out, do we have a or a negative relationship, correlation. So here's our graph, and let's use a line. So now, does this line make sense? Does it try to go through all the points with having a positive correlation? Or does it make more sense to have a line like this that forms a negative correlation? Well, it makes sense to actually have a line like this to have a negative correlation. So this is actually a negative correlation. So negative correlation. The other thing that it's interesting in this, like if you look at the points, one of the points is very off. Well, if you like, for example, this point right here, it's very off from all the other points. This one that doesn't really fit this negative correlation is very far off. It's called an outlier. And so again, an outlier is a point that doesn't really fit our correlation or our pattern in the graph. So let's go back to the question. So we graphed it, and now we're going to answer the question: does the graph suggest a relationship between the leg length and the time taken to walk 100 meters? And if so, describe the relationship. Well, we said it was a negative relationship or a negative correlation. So if you do the graph by hand, this is what it looks like. And as you notice, the correlation is negative. So as time decreases, your leg length actually increases, meaning that it takes you less time to complete 100 meters distance, and your leg length increases. That means as you have longer legs, it takes you less time to walk the distance of 100 meters. So there's negative correlation. The last thing I want to talk to you about in this video is that the difference between primary data and secondary data. Now, if you read the question, it says that he gathered this data showing, and because he gathered this information, that this is called a primary data, because he gathered it. If this data was given to him, this would be called secondary data. Often enough in our information, in our data gathering, we encounter secondary data. That means somebody's given us the information, or we capture this information from somebody else. Okay, hopefully you enjoyed this lesson. This was fun. And stay tuned for another lesson. Take care. Bye-bye.